Hello, and welcome to a very special episode number 21 of Just Shillin'. I am one of your hosts, Sean Hoffman,
And I'm your other host, Andy Bell.
and we actually have a very special guest this week. It is the podcast extraordinaire, the literary genius, and the paper shuffler himself, Rik Villanueva. How's it going, buddy?
I am doing so well. First and foremost, thank you guys for asking me to come on, and I'm glad we can work the scheduling out. But to be here for episode 21, the show where this podcast is now able to drink, at least in the States,
Woohoo!
you know, we're gonna just pretend to be all kinds of messed up on this one. I'm drinking coffee because I just got off of work and I'm gonna be tired in a little bit. I don't want to crash. Talking to you guys, this is a celebration. This is a celebration of the things we love.
I'm just grateful that you agreed to join us, Rik. I mean, A, I'm in awe of what you do. B, I've never, ever met you before face to face, as it were, albeit virtually. And you are one of those guys that adds a little bit, in fact, quite a lot of credibility to what we do. So thank you so much for deeming us worthy enough.
Well, it's kind of you to say. I really appreciate that. And again, thanks for having me come on. And we're gonna talk some fun stuff. I know it.
Yeah, it's really nice to be able to bring on somebody who's not just reading books for themselves, but they're reading books for the millions, I assume, the millions of us that listen to your pod and can help make it make sense instead of what I used to do, which is basically browse Wikipedia all the time and try to find the answers instead of just reading them myself. But it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's go through the motions and let's take Rik through our typically perfectly organized week that we or agenda that we normally keep to very well every week. And let's ask you first, Rik. What have you been up to this week? I will move on to talk a little bit about the news, what we've picked up in the news, and then I'll ask you what you've been listening to and watching. But your last week, what have you been up to? Anything exciting?
Man, there's been so much happening in our humble little house. Like we've got a new puppy here. We've had him for just about a month. He's 11 weeks now. His name is Kanan, and he's the best. So like he's getting us up early in the mornings, and just like another big life event for us. Outside of that, my son finished eighth grade yesterday, so kind of elementary school is done for him. He starts high school in the fall, so we had the big ceremony for that yesterday. It was a good time. Super proud of him and everything that he's done over the last couple of years, and just like a dad moment. Going back to the dad motivators thing for us old heads. Being able to talk about my son a little bit is something that brings me a lot of joy because I am super proud of him. And I'm not just saying this on the pod. I did tell him yesterday too. Um, so he knows how I feel about all of that. And yeah, other than that, like I said, just busy with the work stuff. Trying to catch up on a little bit of TV when I do find a little bit of time. Um, a new Star Wars book come out this week that I was able to review a few weeks ago, but I'm glad it's kind of out in the public now. Temptation of the Force, and lots of comic books. Star Wars wise I've been getting into. So I'm one of those dudes that when canon was kind of reset and the Marvel comics were starting up again in 2014, 15, I said to myself, self, we're going to read everything. And I made this commitment. And there are times when I get overwhelmed. Like I'm a little bit behind on some of the comics, but I have pretty much held to that as far as canon, like all the novels, middle grade, and all of that stuff, and all the comics. Um, there's a few like the younger reader books, like the learning to read type of things that are kind of considered canon that I haven't checked up on. But for the most part, anything that you're gonna hear people talking about, I've kept up on. I fall into that sicko category, like Catherine Neen watching Hawes and
Nice.
Steele do their thing. So yeah,
You're certainly one of the hardest working guys I know. I quite often wake up first thing in the morning and there's already a crack of dawn pod of yours that you've been reviewing the latest episode of one piece of media or the other, and I'm thinking to myself, this guy's about to go to work, and he's
sometimes. sometimes that's the only time I have to do it is like I'll get to
Oh,
work
I
early.
see.
Sometimes it's like a parking thing where I'll have 20 minutes, half an hour before I need to actually walk onto the job site, and I'm like, okay, let me gather my thoughts for like a minute, quick recap, refresher, and then just go stream of consciousness. I don't really take a lot of notes except for when you hear paper shuffling when I have time to take notes. But most of the time I don't. And it's just kind of like the blessing and the curse of having a good memory, I guess, that I'm able to kind of do that stuff. But thanks for listening. You know what I mean? Like it means a lot to know that people are actually out there paying attention to what I have
It,
to
it,
say.
it it's kind of like a must listen to. It's one of those must listens at the moment, especially when it comes down to what we're about to talk about later on in tonight's pod. It's essential for me, who has no background in an awful lot of the High Republic stuff in particular,
Mhm.
but also kind of dropped off general reading. Not everything, but certainly when it comes down to Star Wars canon, I kind of lost my way a little bit after Ronin. I found Ronin quite a hard read, and I'm sorry, we're getting bogged down already, but I found Ronin quite a hard read, and lost a lot of interest in reading Star Wars after that. And I need to get back up. I've got some time off over July with the family, and hopefully relaxing on a beach, and that's what I'm hoping to pick up a book again.
Listen,
What about you, Sean? Oh, sorry.
well, if I can say, like, that's really understandable. Like, it's a time commitment to try to get into the books and comics,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's not easy. I mean, I consider myself lucky that I can go to work, pop in an earbud, and listen to an audiobook if I want to, or listen to podcasts all day, or listen to music if I want to. And a lot of people don't have that luxury. So, I mean, I completely understand. And I would hope that with what I'm doing with my show, that if what I'm saying garners enough interest in the people that are listening to want to check out a book, and to kind of show their love to the authors that are out there, because they do appreciate it. Everybody that I've talked to, like when they
Mm.
see that people reaching out to them online, like they gobble it up. I would hope that that's at least and I say this humbly, that the kind of reach that I have to, if one person's going out to pick up a book that I recommend, then mission accomplished, I suppose.
I'm really glad you mentioned audiobook, because audiobook changed my life a few years back.
Mhm.
I used to do an awful lot of driving into the office, not so much now because I'm quite the hybrid worker these days, but it changed my life. And I know that there are some folk that it has to be the written text. But I discovered um, audiobooks, or Audible in particular, as an app, almost by accident, and it changed my life. Not only could I consume quicker, and out of convenience while I was driving or traveling, um, but I also found some of the production qualities of some of these audiobooks being absolutely astounding. I
Mhm.
mean,
Top man.
typically Mark Thompson, obviously, but what was the what was the companion book that accompanied Solo, where they had it was based around three. Oh, I should have. Is it Last Chance?
No,
Um,
you had Last Shot, which was the Han Solo, like,
that was
kind
the
of
comic,
Lando
wasn't
book.
it?
No, that was a novel, but then there was Most Wanted was like Han's early days with Kira. Um,
It was last. It was the former. It was the
yeah,
former. Is
Last
that the
Shot.
one where is that where it was split across three different times time scales, or
Yeah,
time?
it
Sorry,
jumps
times.
timelines. That's Daniel Jose Older's, I think, his
Mhm.
first novel in canon.
Yeah.
He's got a bunch of short stories and stuff. That's the book. That's the book where Han Solo steps on like space Legos that baby Kylo Ren,
Yeah.
baby Ben Solo left on the ground. One of those episodes.
Right.
It's like the whole droid thing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
that's
the
the whole.
one.
Yeah.
That's the one. That's the one. Where V looks up, where she basically replicates herself
Mhm.
to become this huge intelligent. Yeah, yeah, that was the one. Anyway, my point being is the production values of that book in particular in the audio format, I thought was phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Because of course they had was it three different readers for each of the timelines that they were covering, and it was all done very, very differently to each other. But I thought it all tied together really, really nicely. Anyway, I'm going off at tangent again. Sean, how was your week, mate?
My week's good. I mean, I'll add to that. I'll add to the audiobook thing too. Um, I discovered audiobooks and they help. I actually listen to the audiobook while I'm reading, like on Kindle, because it keeps me focused. Because otherwise, I'll just be like like looking off into space, and it's like actually keeps me like keeps the cadence going. So like if I'm reading and the next thing you know, like I'll drift off. It's like it keeps going. It's like, oh yeah, keep going, keep focusing on it. And then actually I consume the books better when I actually listen to the audiobook at the same time that I'm reading. It's like watching a television show and reading at the
Mhm.
same time.
I
But
almost thought you were going to say I'm actually reading a different book at the same time I'm listening to an audiobook of something else, which would
oh
be really
man,
clever.
dude, it takes every ounce of effort to keep me focused on something. So it
Me too.
is
Me
there's
too.
I wish I had that ability to like you guys talk about, oh, I cook and I watch a TV show in the background. It's like, oh no, stuff would be burning on the stove. It would be an absolute disaster. It takes 110% effort on everything to get something done. So but other than that, dude, it's been another uneventful week. I'm still here for one more sleep in on the East Coast, or not really East Coast. I'm in Indiana, so I'm in the Midwest, but in
Ooh,
Eastern
you're
time
right. You're
zone.
right near me, man.
Yeah, just a hop, skip, and a jump on the
Basically.
not
Thanks.
too far away.
Thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Hey, if I had a vehicle, I would, but I am stuck.
Just jump in a
Uh,
tractor or steal one of them Amish carts. You'll be here in no time.
no, I'm a bit further south than that. Um, but yeah, so I've just been hanging out. I've been not a whole lot's been done this week. It's 309 days until Star Wars Celebration Japan. Just want to throw that out there in case anybody was
Excellent.
wondering. And I've been up doing a bunch of updates on websites and stuff like that, and just watching the Acolyte and getting excited, listening to my two buddies guesting on pods, producing pods, and I'm excited to talk that kind of stuff with them later. But other than that, man, not a whole lot. And I did play Star Wars Hunters. There's that. I forgot about that. I'm looking at my notes going, there's nothing. I'm reading the words Star Wars Hunters, but nope, didn't play it. No, I did play that. And you're not missing out on much. I know last week you were bummed that you couldn't play it on your Gigantor phone, but it's you're not missing a whole lot. It's fun, but it feels kind of like mobile game scammy a little bit.
Hmm.
Like it's just beats you over the head with like upsells, like, oh, buy a subscription,
Yeah.
buy the plan, buy the season pass, buy this thing. And I just kind of came to the conclusion it's like it's fun, but it's basically an arena shooter with a Star Wars skin on top. I mean, it's fun, but will I play it a month from now? I don't know if I get sucked into it and like really get hyper focused on it, but it's not bringing anything to the table for me. I am excited for other stuff though.
I've been playing
Yeah.
that game off and on for a little over a year because I found a way to do it. Don't tell anybody.
Nice.
And like it was a little time suck, throw in 15, 20 minutes at a time. And I've leveled myself up to like level like 18 or something over the course of
Mhm.
that year. And then the game launches and I'm in all these different Discord things and I see these guys are already like day one or like level 20. And I'm like, I looked at my stats. I played for like 4.5 hours over the course of a year. And I was like,
Yeah.
that'll do. I'm fine with that. And I'll jump in every now and again. People are like, we should play. And then I go on and like nobody's online to play. And I'm like, you people suck. You guys, you guys
I
are
do
worse.
wonder if I'm actually playing real people because it's got real names, but I feel like I'm doing too well for my ability. Like I'm not gonna like toot my horn and be like, I am a really good gamer and I am just stomping people on the internet. But you go on, it's like I just feels too easy. Like I'm playing people, they've got ranks that are really high and they've got real names, but I'm kind of like winning. And so are they just bots? I don't really know what's going on. But yeah, it just kind of seems to be the same thing repeatedly over and over again. But I don't know. It is
That's
what it is.
cool.
It's
That's
yeah.
cool. Again, taking some time off in July, so I might just download it onto Lucy's Switch and try it out that way when we're on the beach or when we're doing nothing.
It does have a
But yeah,
Wookiee, so there's that. You'll like him.
And
what the hell then?
he beats people with like KS droid arms. That's his weapon.
Nice. Well, I can see myself liking it already then.
Mhm.
So on my side, I'll be quick. First of all, it's nice to be speaking to people for real this week. I do apologize to our listeners, our many listeners that we have, for somewhat
There's
rambling.
dozens of us.
Yeah, for if it sounded like I was rambling a little bit. I mean, those of you that know me know that I'm pretty verbose anyway at the best of times. But last week, as you may or may not have sussed, my friend Sean was having a few internet issues, and in order to try to maintain the pod, I kept losing him. So it was just me recording, and I kept talking for the sake of talking. And in most cases, it worked. In that, within 30 seconds or so, Sean would come back, but towards the end, he would go for longer periods of time, and that's when I just ran out of steam and I couldn't talk anymore. And really, it got quite desperate. And so my apologies if it sounded a little bit desperate last week. And like I said, you had to hear me droning on for quite a while. I do have a couple of corrections, and that's from last week. An Alien Romulus rating is actually now this is where I go wrong. So in the UK now, it's gone from a 15 to an 18, which means in the US you're rated. What's your height? It's R rating for you guys.
Rating, yeah.
Whereas I didn't think it was, because originally in the UK it was going to come out as a 15. Our ratings sometimes don't match up. And in doing so, I made an assumption that it wasn't going to be R rated in the US, and it is going to be R rated in the US, which is great because it's a younger demo. It's targeted at a younger demographic, but it's still going to be as bloody as hell. So my apologies for that, folks. Second correction I have is, and I challenged myself on this, was that I was convinced last week that the Jedi Temple at Coruscant, during the first two or the second episode of don't laugh at me, the Acolyte was smaller, and I thought to myself, it can't have doubled in size in only 100 years. And I double checked it with some footage of the Phantom Menace, and I was talking absolute crap.
You said it so confidently, though, that I didn't want to argue.
Yeah,
with you.
I know.
You were
I
just
don't
like,
know what it was.
You're like, it's smaller. I'm like, I guess.
I don't know what.
All right,
but I did tell you I hadn't finished the second episode, which is no excuse because it was actually featured in the first episode. But I also saw a lot of it on the plane as well on my phone, on my Gigantus phone. Dude, or guys, sorry, or everyone, I'm really sorry. I do occasionally talk shite. In fact, I do talk shite a lot of the time. Anyway, that was kind of like the forgive me's out of the way for this week. Like yourselves, it's been a relatively head down week with work. Very, very quiet weekend. Great weather, so I spent a lot of time messing about outside, barbecuing, tidying up the garden, making a mess of it, that kind of stuff. But really, for me, it's been great catching up with Josh, Catherine, Turbo, and Matt this morning after the episode 3 of the Acolyte, and I was able to catch up with all 4 of them on Star Wars Spelt Out this week. So thanks again to Josh for having me and for putting up with my nonsense. It was a really, really good yarn. A lot of fun catching up with those 4. And that's been my week, really, mate. Anything from you guys in news? Did you pick up any news this week? I've got a couple of things, but I'd obviously like to extend it to our guests first. Anything in the news that really tickled your fancy this week?
The only thing newsy, like Star Wars wise, was the release of Temptation of the Force this week. You guys, if anybody's interested, I have a spoiler-free review that came out a few weeks ago. I'm going to do a spoiler review hopefully this weekend with the guest. And I love the book. I hope people take the time to read it if you're into the High Republic. There's some very, very cool stuff in it. That's about it that I can think of Star Wars wise. The only other thing that I'm excited for that may be newsworthy is House of the Dragon Season 2 starts up this coming weekend. And with the way Season 1 ended, I'm pretty dialed in on this show. So that's
going to be carnage, isn't it?
I mean, there'd have to be, some incest, a little bit of carnage sprinkled in. That's how they do on those shows.
In that order.
Awesome.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean?
Only a couple things. One, the previously leaked HasLab Cantina thing came out as well. Currently, as of when I checked it a couple hours ago, it was at 4,500 backers out of 8,000 with 26 days left, much to the chagrin of the shittier sides of the internet. But starting out at $400, they got a deluxe version this time for 500. Basically, it's like a super playset that's all modular, tons of booths, stools, chairs, cups, characters, just all sorts of stuff. Like there was there was a really good. I expected it to just be absolute carnage in the comments. I couldn't help myself. I'm like, let's look at the comment section, and I expected it to be carnage, but there was actually some really thoughtful responses to like the yak face Instagram, where people were. I mean, there was a lot of garbage in there too. They're like, it should be $50, and it's but there's a couple people in there who were like kind of doing like the business case for it. They're like, look at what you're getting, et cetera, et cetera. You're getting this many characters, you're getting this, this, and this. It's like, it's actually like a pretty fair price plus a $75 convenience fee. Cause everybody's like, oh, I could 3D print that. It's like, here's how they do the breakdowns. Go ahead.
Do we know what the tiers are yet? Because don't they have like, if it
it's
reaches
like
a certain amount of...
I don't know what the numbers are, but I know it's like Greedo is like the first giveaway,
Right.
which is like cool. Who cares? We've already got Greedos and stuff. There's a Wuhar. There's the twins. I can't remember what their names.
Oh, cool.
Tonica sisters. Yeah. And then there's one of those. I can't remember what the alien's name is, but he's got like 4 arms. All in the vintage collection TVC size, which is pretty neat. But yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. I'm not getting it. I've committed to too many of those stupid things in the past, and like that's my only complaint is that there's not really anywhere to like. You have to have a place to put this. It's like that's like a coffee table thing, or you could do like a diorama on a bookshelf or something, I guess. But no, it's just that's not for me. That's outside my price range for what
so
it
you're
is.
Not, you're definitely not gonna go for it.
No, and I'm not going to get drunk and order this either. So just to save everybody the future questions. It's not. This is. Okay. It's just not even like scratching.
Let me just write down the time that he said that in this episode. We'll come back to this in the future.
Well, you know what? Maybe I will now. Maybe I will. The only other thing that came out that was really of interest to me that I saw was the Star Wars Outlaws gameplay showcase, which is like a 10-minute video from. I don't even remember, but it's like 10 minutes of them talking over the gameplay and showing a little bit of footage. I thought it looked awesome. It reminds me a lot of Starfield. I mean, but that's also just that kind of genre, but like the look and feel and kind of the interactions and things. It's like, oh, this is kind of what I was wanting Starfield to be. Cause I played Starfield and like, I like that game, but I'm like, I really wish this was Star Wars. And now feels like I'm kind of getting that. Yeah, it looked really neat.
I'm really stoked. I'm really stoked. This is the, and don't get me wrong, I'm not in any way dismissing Jedi Survivor at all, and Fallen Order, of course. But they're very linear as games, despite the exploration you can do, and the story is phenomenal. But it's a you know what I'm like about Force users. It's another Force user, and it's a great, compelling story. And I love the idea of the them establishing the what's it called the road, not the road, the path. I love that. I love all that stuff, that connective stuff to the mainstream stuff. But this for me is fantastic. I'm going to spend hours and hours and hours, literally just bumming about town and getting into trouble and doing stuff and probably ignoring the main mission because this is completely right up my alley. So I'm really looking forward to it. And the quality I thought looked really, really good as well. So yes, very stoked about that one. Anything else, mate?
No.
Okay. Only 2 more things for me. The Umbrella Academy trailer came out. So the new trailer for that came out. I'm very, very happy. I feel sorry for that program because it's the seasons have been so inconsistent when it comes. Sorry, in terms of time between them, they've been so that the whole rollout of all. I think it's only season 4, which is the last and final season. They've been so protracted, and I'm going to have to go back and rewatch certainly season 3 at the very least to remind myself where they ended up. Typically in hijinks, it always ends on a cliffhanger. But I love the series. I really do love the series, and unfortunately, I'm really sorry it is coming to an end. But all good things do, I guess. But looking forward to that. And then Amanda Stenberg um, was on Jimmy Fallon, and I don't know if you remember in the run up to the Acolyte, she did a featurette whereby John Williams wrote a piece of music for her based on the Force theme. Anyway, she played it. She played it on Jimmy Fallon live last week, and it was delightful, absolutely delightful, with a little bit of customization, a little bit of modification at the end of her own doing, and it was just really, really struck me as being fantastic, and how just annoyingly talented she is, A, as an actor, and B, as a musician.
How rude.
Um, I know. While the rest of us can only get on with one talent. But that's it from me. So I guess, as we normally do to wrap this little segment up at the beginning, Rik, what have you been watching, listening to, reading over the last week or so? I mean, timeline's not a problem for you because it's the first time you've been on the pod.
Yeah, so let's go back to 1979 and the first TV show I remember. No, recently, I'm going to talk about shows that I finished and one that we started. So, like in the last maybe month or so, I finally finished Blue Eye Samurai,
Mm.
and which I absolutely loved. Can't wait to see what may come of a follow up to that. If I don't even know if there's anything greenlit or not, but I thought that was very well done. I last week blew through all of Scavenger's Reign on Netflix. It was on Max before. If you guys have not seen Scavenger's Reign, it is a piece of animation. It is 12 episodes. They're about 25 minutes a piece. It is about this ship called the Demeter 227 that gets thrown off course, and the survivors end up on this alien world. And a few of the survivors, I should say, they're trying to find their way off. Um, the world itself is so weird. Like the biology of this world is so out there. It amazes me when I see shows like that because I have to step back and say, somebody thought of this. Somebody
Mm.
Yeah.
imagined this way out thing that somehow works in that ecology. You know what I mean? Like they worked
Mhm.
out this ecosystem and there's different kind of terrains and stuff. Unlike Star Wars that has like desert whole planets, this thing actually has, weather. Um, but it's about these survivors and them trying to, you know, get off of this world and get back home essentially. There's a lot more to it than that. That is way bare bones. I don't want to spoil anything because I was genuinely shocked at some moments in it. There was some really, really deep emotion in some of these scenes. There was one moment that was brutal when it
Mm.
happens that got me a little choked up. And it's not even a character that you're super supposed to like when this thing happens. And I don't want to say much more than that, but it go watch it on Netflix now because, like I said, it was on Max and they dropped it, and Netflix picked it up. It is expertly done. It's one of the best pieces of animation I've seen in a very long time. Um, and anything what else we've finished? We watch a lot of shows on my son. Like we blew through Psych, we blew through Parks and Rec a few months ago, and we just the other day with him started the 0304 Battlestar Galactica. And yes, I know you guys have talked about it. And my wife and I, ages ago, when she had her like Apple account or whatever, she bought the seasons. And then Apple decided to like, oh, thank you for the money. You don't have your account anymore. And we lost all the episodes. So we never
Oh,
finished it because we couldn't stream it anywhere without pirating it. And we just never took the time. So it popped up on Prime last week and we decided to just give it a go, not realizing that the first, I'm air quoting, mini series is presented as a 1 3 hour episode.
yeah.
So we got about an hour and 45 minutes into it and we were like, what the hell? When is this? Where's the break here? And so we haven't finished it yet, but I think we're going to go through. And I did not know that Battlestar has like a Neon Genesis Evangelion viewing order. I was looking online
Mm.
because there's all of these webisodes that take place in between seasons and stuff, and like
Mm.
kind of like one shot type of stories in episodes that are some a little bit out of order. Not it's not too crazy, but if anybody wants to know how to properly watch Neon Genesis Evangelion. Just hop into Blue Harvest Twitch on a Friday or Saturday night. I'm sure Hawes will tell you if you ask him nicely. But that's about what we've been in. Movie wise, I was so happy to see Godzilla Minus One pop up on Netflix last week.
Mm.
My son and I saw that movie 3 times in the theaters last fall and winter. He went and saw it another time with my mother-in-law, and that's my favorite movie of all of last year.
Mm.
Like get the F out of here with Barbenheimer. Like, give me all the Godzilla Minus One content. Like, that movie blew me away in ways that I was not expecting. The human story, the the way trauma sits with you, the way the war sits with you, those kinds of things. And then, obviously the whole kaiju aspect of it um, is was pretty well done with destruction of certain areas. And speaking of kaiju, something I forgot to mention was Kaiju number 8 on Crunchyroll, an anime that started up a few months ago. And I've been reading the mangas. I think I'm maybe only 4 in, but it's a lot of fun. It's kind of goofy at times. It is gory and brutal as anime can be, but that's a recommend for me if you get into any kind of anime stuff. But like my tastes are all over the board. I'm not just into Star Wars, guys. Like that's what I talk
No.
about primarily on my show. But I need a break from time to time because especially the way it was in the beginning of this year with the amount of books that were coming out, especially for review. We got slapped with like 6 books over the course of maybe 7 weeks. It felt like it was very, very dense. So it's nice to take a break every once in a while and read subtitles on a screen while not at all practicing my Japanese because I'm not going to Celebration next year, so I don't have to.
Well, I was going to say we try to be as a little bit eclectic as well in our palette with what we talk about because
Yeah.
well, 2 reasons. We do get droughts. We do get droughts of information, of content, and second reason for me also by watching other stuff. And believe me, over the last 12 months, I have watched some crap. It helps you appreciate what we do have from the likes of from the Disney crew. So yeah, no, we try to watch a bunch of stuff as well. What
It
about you,
also,
Sean?
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
sorry.
it also helps to develop a sense of media literacy if you are
Yeah,
able to consume a bunch of different things like genre wise and whatever it is, rom-coms or you know documentaries, whatever it is, you know what I mean, like you can kind of,
yeah,
I think it's like reading. If you read a whole bunch of different stuff, like you're probably going to do better trying to develop ideas of like thematic breakdowns of, what I mean, like just it just helps you to consume things, I think, a little bit more molecular than just I like what I saw on TV, which is fine. I mean, if you want to just superficially watch a show to watch it, like I have nothing against that. But like, if you really want to get into the meat and taters of what some of these shows
yeah.
are about, like it really helps to have kind of a varied, um, um, entryway of consumption. You know what I mean? All this different stuff. So
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I'm 100% with you. Sean and the cats.
Oh, can you hear him? Can you hear her
Yeah.
yelling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't worry, man. She's part of the team.
She's there it
Hello,
is.
baby. Hello, baby.
So that's what I've been listening to while here is the random hour. Oh, there she is. The random hours of night just yowling and running around the house because my mom's got hardwood floors. And so they go downstairs and it sounds like 2 gorillas fighting all night. So that's been the main thing. The second thing that I've been listening to a lot recently is you two guys on freaking every podcast on my podcatcher, it feels like. So that's been cool. Getting your all sorts of thoughts on all sorts of things. That's a good thing, by the way. I know it kind of came across sarcastic just now. Didn't mean it that way. I meant it
you
like
sarcastic? No.
I meant that as a positive. Other than that, I know it's been weird because obviously, as you know, I've been super not at home. So I haven't been able to dig into as much. So I've been doing a lot of YouTube and stuff actually. I've got the itch again. I started watching some scale modeling videos, and it's like, ooh, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to start working on some stuff. It's always like when I can't do it. It's like I'm not home, so now it's like, oh, I really wish I could model right now. Now that I'm not there, but as soon as I go home, it'll be like, meh, no wait. But that's been pretty
Did you hear?
pretty hot.
Did you hear that? Did you hear this week's Scruffies?
Not yet. I have not.
All right, okay. I'm just. You are at this moment in time Chris's favorite guy. He's demolishing that Kit Bash stuff that you sent him.
Oh, I'll
Absolutely
have to listen.
demolishing it. Yeah, yeah.
And
Yeah.
by
No,
demolishing,
have a listen.
meaning throw away all those
No,
3PO parts.
No. Well, he didn't mention that actually, but no, he's back into the swing of
That part got edited out.
of kit bashing again, building his droids. So yeah, he's doing well. He's doing well.
Nice. I mean, but that's awesome to hear. I'm glad. I'm glad I can live vicariously through people too. Like, because there's times when I'll see like our buddy Ed and Chris especially, like they'll post pictures of their stuff, and it's honestly it's kind of a kick in the teeth at times too, where I'm like, damn, these guys got like real talent. Like because they're just smashing through them. And it's like, I'll sit there and like meticulously do this. I'm like, I think this looks okay. And then they'll post something like, I did this over a weekend. And it's like, damn, that's like actual good, not put it on the refrigerator good. It's real good. But no, I'm excited. I'm excited to get back into that. And I'm excited to get home and watch some stuff on my TV and catch up on some things. I got that little backlog going.
Been a long month, man, for you. For you both.
You're telling me, man.
It's been a long time.
Right.
Yeah, other than that, that's you know what I've watched. You know what I've watched. So
yeah. I'll be very quick. So Lucy, my wife Lucy, she loves monster movies, but she particularly loves trashy shark movies. She's a fan of The Meg, for example. So as a reader, I had no idea that The Meg is not only a successful film franchise, but there's quite a lot of books out there as well. So she's absolutely demolished those books. But there's also found in her hunger for more content, she found a French-speaking film called Under Paris, and it's about a shark that can multiply asexually, instantaneously, pretty much
shark.
instantaneously. Yeah, it's a French shark.
Yeah,
exactly.
Very discerning taste. It'll only eat.
You could tell. And basically, it finds its way in the catacombs, in the famous catacombs under Paris, and goes on a killing spree under Paris. It's completely far fetched and extraordinarily trashy, but I tell you what, it's really good fun, and we had quite a good laugh watching that. I watched the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes has come out. I think it's on Prime. Released on Prime. I never saw it at the cinema. I think it was because The Hunger Games was one of those franchises that were my connection with the girls, both the original books, as you know, but also the films themselves. And now that they've left home, it wasn't really on my agenda or on my radar to go and see it. So as a result of that, this weekend we had to ourselves and we saw that, and it was really good. I really enjoyed it. It was. It's a shame that it didn't have the impact that it could have had. I guess it was because it's a prequel about the bad guy, about President Snow and his background. But also the time it was released was not great either, as with many of these at the moment. But it's worth a watch if you have watched at some point the rest of the or the mainstream Hunger Games movies. Started watching The Ones Who Lived, The Walking Dead, and I'm only 10 minutes in. I must admit, I started watching it, and it's no, it's not a negative. It's not a negative.
It was early
just
thoughts.
No, early thoughts were it's great to have Rik back.
Oh, thank you. And appreciate that.
No, it was great to have you there. I found myself not concentrating, and I thought it was unfair to carry on watching it. And I didn't finish series 10. I think it was the very, very last series of The Walking Dead. And I found an awful lot of our friends dropped off a lot earlier than that. And I tried my hardest to finish the at least the main series, but didn't finish it, unfortunately. So I thought I'd start afresh with this, and I found myself my mind wandering. So I will go back to it. It looks good. Production values are very, very high. I just haven't finished it yet. What I have got into is started watching Eric with Benedict Cumberbatch. The story right up your alley here, Sean. Stories about well, actually no, it's sad, but it's about a couple whose child is abducted. Now the husband, played by Benedict, is a Muppet maker. He makes Muppets. He makes puppets. Unfortunately, he's ever so slightly a very troubled gentleman, and he a lot of his Muppets that he's making are from, if you like, his mind playing tricks with him. He has in his mind his friend Eric, who is this large Muppet that nobody else can see but him. And it's all about his attempt at trying to get his son back through building Eric in real life, so that his son can see the Muppet, and that there's some kind of, it creates some kind of hope to get him back. Halfway through, really, really well done. Quite traumatic. Obviously, the subject matter itself is quite traumatic, but extremely well acted. Carrying on with Dark Matter. Dark Matter. If anyone does have Apple TV, it's the TV series with Joel Edgerton, whereby he essentially is an amazing scientist that creates the multiverse, or creates a means to access the multiverse, not in a superhero manner, but in a manner whereby he comes across different versions of himself, and he's trying to find his way back. Quite clever, and again, really, really well acted. And that's been it for me. So all in all, not a lot going on, but enough to keep it interesting for this week.
Now, I wanted to say about Under Paris, because I saw somebody online talking about it. I mean, it seems like some kind of, just kind of silly fun or whatever. But, killing sprees only happen, in the south of France. Anything else is just sparkling murder. I was waiting on that one. I actually wrote it. I actually wrote it down.
Damn it,
Aren't you glad you asked me to come on?
That's almost as good as my Acolyte comment last week.
I have to. I was texting Sean on Monday about possibly finding the time to come on as I was listening to the episode, and I literally texted him back, and I was like, "Wait, maybe not. You just made the Acolyte joke. I might have to reconsider."
Excellent. Okay.
I guess my jokes are in good company then. I guess I don't know.
No, listen, I'm kind of I find myself listen,
Taking
your jokes
it for granted.
No, your jokes are a lot better than Eddie B over at the Scruffies. I love Eddie with all my heart, but I sent him what I thought was some pretty good dad jokes, which he's repeated at least 2 of them on the show itself, and I thought, no, it's not just about the joke, it's in the delivery as well. And it's like, oh, Eddie, mate, I love you, but no, don't do it. Don't do it. Anyway, right, should we talk about the main event, Sean?
Yeah, I think we should. I was trying to come up with something to say there, and it just poof. I was too busy thinking about, man, you had just threw Ed under the bus. That was crazy.
He's done it to me a lot of times. He did it to us, dude. First time we went on the pod, we started talking about the pod, and he admitted to us blatantly, "I've not listened to it yet. I haven't listened to it at all." It's like, thanks, dude. You could have lied. You could have lied and said, "Oh, it's fantastic, guys."
After
what you're doing is the Lord's work.
Listen again.
At least be like everybody else, and just say you've listened.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the main event is the Acolyte episode number 3, Destiny, which premiered this week. I'm sure everybody's very excited to hear Andy's thoughts on it, which I'm going to edit out because he got his time last week.
What's that? Is Andy having internet problems right now? Technical difficulties?
Yeah, I think he is.
Dude, it wasn't intentional.
I got to double it up this week since I didn't get any in last week. But
you go for it, man. You go for it.
It's episode 3. I think I think it'd be fun to kind of go around and kind of give our, since Rick is new to this pod, at least he's not new to podcasting at all. Um, Kind of give our high level thoughts on like, are you enjoying the show? Uh, Things like that. And then I think once we kind of get all that out of the way, then let's deep dive and ask some questions and see some connections to maybe the books, and we can just go round robin, stuff like that. But yeah, Rick, what do you think of the show so far? Is it your jam? Is it
I
not?
I'm enjoying this show. Like I talked about this today on my breakdown for episode 3, but the first 2 episodes didn't grab me as much as I wanted them to. I thought they were both good. They were solid, like A minus kind of episodes for me. Like they were good. They
Mm.
kept me, captivated and intrigued and everything. I love the look and feel of it, but something about the like underlying mystery didn't completely grab me just yet. And this week's episode 3, just completely sank its claws into me from the beginning. This To have an episode be like flashback by way of, or I should say, exposition by way of flashback, works for me on a couple of different levels, and it's making me enjoy the show that much more. Getting a different take on this cosmic energy that's been primarily known as the Force. I mean, there's lots of other names for it in Star Wars canon now, but it's still primarily just the Force with the Jedi. But like getting all of that, painting the Jedi in a certain light, at a certain light, the whole kind of Rashomon effect of what this episode is setting up, I think is was very well handled. And we'll get into specifics in a bit, but I finished the episode last night and just kind of stopped. I was like, okay, I know I need to go to bed. I have to get up early,
Hmm.
and I just sat in bed like in the dark, you know, just staring at the black ceiling of like no lights and just thinking about the possibilities and the other kind of perspectives of what the other Jedi were doing, what was happening that we didn't see, what was May's point of view, what's Mother Anastaea's point of view, and the thinking that we may get those kinds of things later on as the show progresses. For me, it's gotten me that much more excited, and just being a super fanboy of the High Republic, kind of seeing this era brought to life, even though it's at the end of it, is very cool for me. So on a superficial level, I guess.
Nice. What about you, Andy? Anything changed since last week? Are you
I
still
love
vibing
that.
with it?
I love that. I love that. I love the way that Rick put it, actually, and I wish I could be that smart with words, but I can't, so I won't bother. But
I wrote it all down. I prepped it ahead of time.
oh, excellent! A man that likes pen and paper. There you
Yeah.
go. There
not
you
doing
go,
this.
Sean.
We're not doing this.
There you go, Sean. There you go, Sean. It works. It works.
My
See, it's
my
functional.
analog reactions. Yeah, analog
Exactly.
reactions.
Exactly. No, I thought it was good. I thought it was really, really good. It took me. It felt a lot more Star Wars this week, and please, I will explain myself. When we reviewed the first 2 episodes last week, we talked about what I liked about it the most is that it was story first, wrapped in the Star Wars universe. It made me. It was the very same feel that I got, or a similar feel I got from Andor, in that it could be anywhere, it could be anything. It just so happens to be. It just so happens to be in the Star Wars universe. This week felt very Star Wars. It had to. It had to. In that it kind of created this this backstory to kind of, or the launch pad for the story, essentially what the what will be the underlying development of the rest of the season. And I was really, really stoked with the whole thing. I really, really enjoyed it. I really came away feeling quite gutted or empty about how I felt about the Jedi. I thought I really felt kind of almost sickened by the way that they approached it, by the cajoling, the passive aggressive approach to convince those children and their parents and their loved ones to undergo the trials. And even when we'll go into detail later on, but even when, you know, there could have been a chance that neither of the kids went off with them, they kind of manipulated the situation to get what they wanted, which was ultimately this child. And I go into a lot of how I felt during this morning's episode with Josh and the guys, but yeah, it made me feel really hollow about everything that I thought the Jedi were, and it's very, very superficial. And then obviously I was really stoked to find out that Andy can be right every now and again, and that we had witches, and that their origins are witches. So I feel like I've got one on the board at the moment, whereas you don't have any at all, Sean. But I'm just making a point.
All right, we're keeping score now. All right, this sounds not toxic at all. I will put one on the board for
No.
Andy here. There we go. You were right. I'll give you that. I know we went back and forth before the pod, and I said I'll give you 75% because I feel like in deep down you meant Night Sisters, and they're not Night Sisters. But I'll give it to you. I'll give you the full 1 point. You know,
No, I'm okay with 75%. It's still better than zero.
Yeah, it's better.
But anyway, but no, I really enjoyed it. What about you? What about yourself?
I think last week I wasn't able to get my thoughts really. I mean, I was dealing with that internet thing, so I don't feel like I was able to put it clearly, and I wasn't happy with the way I was describing it. But this week really solidified my feelings of like I really, really like it. It feels refreshing and unexpected. I'm going to compare it to two different things. So one, it reminds me of the way I felt when I walked out of The Last Jedi, where when I finished The Last Jedi, I was kind of like speechless and kind of like, I mean, I knew I liked it, but it was just kind of, you're kind of like lost in thought of like, what did I just see? What does this mean? What is next? There's so much of Star Wars that I'm gonna say this word. I don't mean it as like as loaded as it sounds, but like so much of Star Wars is regurgitated in a way. It's kind of the same. It rhymes. It's a lot of the same themes, a lot of things like that. And it's like, you know, it feels the same. It feels good, and I love it. I love all of that. But when you get something like this in like The Last Jedi, which Last Jedi is like one of my favorites, if not my favorite, I go back and forth with it. And you have this, it's like it's just so new, but it's in the same universe. It feels right. But I just get excited. What if something leaves me speechless and I'm just kind of like, I just don't even know what this means. Like it could be anything. That's really cool. I also kind of compare it to this is a horrible comparison, but it's like Star Wars is almost like a drug for me. And the normal Star Wars is like, you know, I'm taking that same drug over and over again, and it's not kicking the same. It's not the same thing. I'm kind of chasing the dragon a little bit. But when you get something like this, it's like, ooh, this is new. This is new. This is very exciting. This is doing it. This is fantastic. It's like Andor. It's like, yes. Ooh, very new. I'm at 100%. I'm at 110%. This is great. It's not that same thing that you do every Saturday night at the club or what. I don't know what people do. But it's so, I love all that, but this just feels new and exciting. And this goes that same way, similar to what you were saying about like the Jedi. It's like, ooh, it's that's something I've always kind of struggled with. Like, I've never been a huge fan of the Jedi. Like, to me, they're just like, meh, they're kind of boring. Like, I like the battles and I like the good side winning and overcoming, but it's never felt as nuanced. And I like this new age where, you know, we talk about the hubris of the Jedi Council from the prequels. We talk about, you know, the failings of Luke Skywalker. It makes it real. It makes it it takes it away from that belief that some people have that it's black or white. You're good or bad. Oh, if it's a bad guy, it's a Sith. If it's a good guy, it's a Jedi. It's like, no, those are just like, those are nuanced, like within the umbrella of good and bad. Everything's a spectrum. Nobody, even in real life, is good or evil. It's like you're somewhere on the number line and it's constantly changing. I love that, and I love that this is touching on that. And it's not all Jedi. And maybe it's one Jedi, and it's maybe just one situation where people messed up. Doesn't make them. I mean, we'll see. We'll see what happens. It's like,
yeah, we should talk about that. We should talk about that later on as to what we, because we didn't see everything. We didn't see
Yeah.
everything, despite it being a setting the scene for the flashback. But just going back to the Jedi, and I made this point this morning, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but this is why I felt sick or hollow.
Mhm.
When we see Qui-Gon saving Anakin or taking Anakin, he's saving him from a life of servitude. He's saving him from a life as a slave. I mean, he's a slave and he is now free. And what Qui-Gon can offer the boy is a better life than he would have had serving Watto. What we saw today, well, yesterday for you guys, but today for me, what we saw today was children being a bunch of a community trying to hide their children from the Jedi and to protect them and to keep them safe and to keep them with them because they're in a loving community, part of a loving community. And the Jedi essentially forcing the conversation so that an 8-year-old can make her own decision.
Mhm.
Well, of course. I mean, Rick, you're a parent. Any child will wish for adventure, wish for a
Mhm.
better life at 8 years old. You know, I 8 years old, I wish I wasn't at home with my mum and dad at the time. I wish I was chasing the galaxy. It felt really, really strange to me and really quite brutal in its sterility. The way that the Jedi do this. It like I said, and I'm sorry to repeat myself, I felt hollow from the whole thing.
It
Which
made
is
it
probably
made I was gonna say
sorry.
it made the Jedi feel like they were upsetting a natural order. They were the
Yes,
outsiders coming in. They
yes,
almost felt like in the first 2 episodes, they felt like the police coming in
Mhm.
to, like, do this investigation. In this episode, for me, they felt like Child Protective Services knocking on doors to say,
yeah,
"You're not doing right by these kids. They need to live this way, and your way is wrong, and they're overstepping their bounds." But we have to consider perspective for that, that may not be the 100% truth of what's happening, but
sure.
that's the way the story is being framed at this point in time.
Sure, which is good. Which is good storytelling, right?
Mhm, mhm.
It's triggering these emotions. I mean, I don't like these emotions, but they're triggering these emotions in them. But yes, like you, I was thinking. Well, I was thinking about more about Star Trek and that they're messing around with the Prime Directive on that planet. They should just leave them alone rather than intervene. But anyway, sorry, I derailed you there, Sean. Sorry, mate.
No, no, no. That's part of the conversation that I want to have. It's like you're hitting those points of it shouldn't be always clear cut. It should be left up to interpretation. And one person's good intentions doesn't mean that it's a good act. Like the Jedi believe that these kids should have an opportunity. They're force sensitive. We should, you should have the opportunity to become a Jedi. It's like that doesn't mean it's a good act. If it's just like communication. Just because you say something with good intentions doesn't mean that the person who's interpreting it has to see that as good. It's like it's how they interpret it. It's two
Yeah,
ways. And I think they're nailing this with yeah, you may be good intention, but what are you doing here? Like why are you here in the first place? You're just here kind of taking kids or starting trouble.
mm,
And it's supposed to make you feel uncomfortable. And I think that's like you said, it's like that's good writing. If it can make you not that it's, always political, but I mean, obviously at times it is, but it's good storytelling in general of like seeing yourself in situations and helping you understand the way communication, actions, society, and just dealing with certain things. Um, Seeing yourself in that, and then how you can grow and things can be misinterpreted. Uh,
mm.
I'm loving it. I'm loving that. I'm loving the fact that they did a flashback, but they didn't do it like a weird half cut episode. They just were like, nope, this whole episode, boom, we're going back in time, and it
Mhm.
is in depth. I like
And
the
I like the
all of
fact
it.
that they did it. I like that they did the flashback now because what they've done traditionally, you've got this build up, build up, build up, build up, and then the kind of the plot or the MacGuffin or the reason for the the mystery reveals itself later on, and sometimes can be underwhelming. I mean, as we know with, well, as I felt with Mando season 3, for example, having it so early, I thought was a stroke of genius. You know, she's managed to take out 2 of the 4 at the moment, and then we're positioning ourselves. We have a little bit of a respite, but we position ourselves to kind of explain somewhat the anger that she's that's driving her at this moment in time. And then I'm assuming from next week we're going to commence where we left off in at the end of episode 2. But I thought again, the pacing of this is really quite well crafted. I really thought that. I have a question for both of you. Rather than go through, I don't think we should. I don't know about you guys, but there's a really, really good guy called Rik that's actually done a complete review of the episode, pretty much in order, in timeline order. But I've got some questions to hopefully generate some thoughts from you guys. The 2 girls, they're the only children in this community of witches. And yet we find out, that there is no father. So with that in mind, there are a bunch of, I can see, theories going on. Are they simply, was it a surrogate pregnancy? Are they clones? Are they somehow an earlier iteration of the chosen one as a dyad? What's your thoughts on this, Rik?
You know what? I hadn't even considered the clone angle of it all. That didn't even pop into my head until you mentioned it. I mean, everything's on the table at this point. But my initial thoughts on the origin of these 2 girls stems from Mother Anastasia using the word unnatural when she does during the Ascension ceremony. And it took me right into kind of the Plagueis stuff from Legends, the idea that he was able to manipulate midichlorians to create life or prolong life, things like that. And I mean, I think at some point canonically that stuff is going to come into play anyway. So why not throw it in here? I think if we want to look at Plagueis as a book to try to fit it in timeline wise, I don't even think Plagueis is around yet. If you want to overlap the timelines, or he would be very young yet. If I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've read that book. But either way, the origin of these girls, being that there's no father, at least one that's not being acknowledged in any sense of the word, opens up another kind of mystery. Why are these girls as special as they are? Because they talk about that a bunch of times. Were they trying to create a dyad? Were they successful in creating a dyad? What kind of bond do they have other than being force sensitive? We hear a lot in literature about supernatural kind of things surrounding twins. You would hear things even in like old, kind of native stories about twins, like the mythological side of twins, and how that all factors in. And I think there's a lot of layers to all of it that we can parse through, but it's not. The idea that it's not all cut and dry, that there is no one definition for it, is really intriguing to me.
Brilliant. Yeah, I love your perspective. I really do. I have another question. And this is addressing the elephant in the room. So we had the flashback being the entirety of this episode. And we got to see the kids and how they were separated. And then towards the end, we have the culmination of the episode with May starting the fire. She took her sister's book, set fire to it, and started the fire. And within minutes, pretty much everyone's dead. So there's absolutely no way that I can see that they were in any way caught up in the fire. I mean, most of the bodies that we saw were pretty much intact. They were lying there dead. So my question, I'll come to the question in a second. When the fire starts, within minutes, Sol is there to rescue the girls as well. Which again, we already know at the very, very beginning that the Jedi have been spying on them for quite some time. Sol, for example, says that the marking on May wasn't there this morning. So clearly they have been watching this coven for quite a while now. And they've been spying on them. And then, like I say, Sol turns up to rescue the kids within minutes of the fire starting. Now, if they are based, if their ship is out of the encampment or out of the village, why would he be there so quickly? And then, as I said, one thing that we don't know about is like what killed all these people. And so, my question to you guys is, what is it that we've missed that we have to at some point get clarity on? Maybe as another flashback, or as a conclusion that is shared with us during the course of the real-time events, as it were, from next week onwards. And I'll ask you first, Sean, what your thoughts are.
Oh man, I was hoping you'd go with Rick first, but I'll go.
But if you're anything like me, you'd listen to Rick and I'd say, yes, I agree with that as as well. That sounds really good. But anyway, so you're first.
I'm with him. I think so. It kind of goes hand in hand with my question of like, mine was just full on to the point. It's like, who do you think killed the witches? It's I think there's obviously tension from the onset, and it's the guy who wrote the name down. May is Corey. I don't remember how her name is. Had the mother, not mother Anasea, but her partner. I can't remember. I feel like something's gonna happen with her starting.
Yeah, she was feisty at the beginning, right? When the Jedi turned up, she was the one that was willing to take arms.
And I think since she carried May and Asha, she's gonna be the reason. She's the reason. Like, she got her half. Her like feistier side, I guess we'll say. I feel like there's gonna be some tension between her and Dara. Because so I'm trying to think of how to phrase this. I don't know Kelnaka's part in it. Torben feels, after taking the Varash vow, he clearly feels guilt over what happened. So I don't think he is the instigator. And Dara is indignant when she is at the very beginning of the season, when she's met by May and just like, yo, you're here. Great. So I feel like she and Dara and the mother are the ones who clash, and then that obviously gets Torben involved. And so I think that's what we're going to see later. We're going to get a different perspective from Saul, because he was there, or maybe not. But I think that's what will come out later when, as we continue forward. That's kind of my real practical thought. But I think they're not showing it.
The only thing I would say is that Torvin is a Padawan at that moment in time. So if you've got an extremely volatile one of the sisters that is trying really, really hard to protect her children, but protect the community and drive these Jedi away, leave us alone. We want to be, we want to be left in peace. And so she's already bubbling over, and then you've got Torben, who is a young practicing Jedi, a Padawan. I'm just wondering if anyone's fuse is going to be lit first from the Jedi, would it be him, because of inexperience, because of maturity, because of lack of control, that maybe a Padawan would have more so than a fully fledged Jedi? I don't know. One thing that came out of today, which I didn't know anything about, but apparently when they're flying back to Coruscant with Osha in tow, apparently in the background, Torben's got that cut down his face that you see is obviously healed over, but he's got that very discolored, milky eye. Oh, you've done it
Okay.
already. Fantastic. Oh, what a legend. Oh, see, we need a proper, we need proper guests all the time like Rick. They come prepared. They've done their work. We just turn up. Anyway, I don't know. And I still have this thought that maybe not only did we see one side and the other side a fuse that was lit between them and kicking off. Maybe we saw some folk kicking off with each other within the same faction as well. So, for example, did that scratch come? That looks like a Wookiee claw scratch, right? I mean, is this in the conflict that may well have ensued prior to the fire being started? Did we see the Jedi trying to push Torben back and control him, and in doing so, he got injured by his own people? I don't know. Anyway,
So
I'm going to pass it over.
I'll respond to that real fast, just a real brief thing, and then we'll give it to Rick. The reason I think it's Endara is because if you look at modern corruption, if a junior does something stupid, they're going to get thrown under the bus and burnt. That bridge is going to get burned really quick. There's no reason higher ups are going to defend them, especially at that time. If Endara starts something, then everybody under her needs to fall in line. Otherwise, you're not going to get it. Because I think if it would have been Torben, I'm going to be wrong 1,000,000%. I guarantee it. But if Torben throws the first blow, that would to me would be like, you're not going to get master. Why would we protect you? It could be a lot more complicated than that. But I feel my guess is with Endara being the one to.
Actually, it's a really good point. She didn't get a lot of airtime today, did she? He was actually quite in the periphery, quite a bit. So you could be right. Her story has not been told yet during those times. Anyway, sorry. Rick, please. What are your thoughts?
Concerning Torben, like the big question I have for him has to do with the Barrage Vow. And I mean, for people who may not know what the Barrage Vow is, it's essentially Jedi dealing with like a certain level of guilt where they step away from the order to kind of meditate within the Force, and that's why we see him floating. There are, I think, 3 known Jedi who have taken the Barrage Vow canonically, including Torben. But the question I have around that is that in last week's episode, in episode 2, they say that Torben's had taken the Barrage Vow for the last 10 years. The events of today's episode were 16 years ago. So did he take the vow because of what happened on Brendok, or did he take the vow because of what happened 6 years after Brendok? And I was talking with King Tom. You guys might know him. You might have heard of him earlier today. And in my head, I was trying to make sure that I had my timelines right of when Osha left the order. Was she in for 6 years and left, or was it 6 years prior to the beginning of the story? Like I couldn't remember exactly where it was, but whatever. I can't see Torben living for 6 years with this guilt and then deciding to take the Barrage Vow. I think something else happened where he was faced with the guilt. Maybe he had a meeting with May a little bit later on, or with Osha, and then the truth came out. There's some blame levied, whatever, we don't really know. But there's that span of time too that makes me kind of question the why of Torben taking the Barrage Vow. And King Tom brought this up too, that you want to tell me that as a Padawan, where he was 16 years prior, in 6 years he became a master, because they address him as a master in the second episode. He's not a knight anymore. We don't, again, there's something going on here where, why did they accelerate him as a way to keep him quiet? Was it, you know what I mean? Like what we don't know the truth of what happened. We don't know the why of what happened. There's a shot in one of the TV spots or one of the trailers where Kelnaka's jumping at Torben. So you kind of actually see what happens. We don't know why. Yeah, there's I've seen it clipped a bunch. I've seen gifs of it and stuff like that. So we've kind of already seen that, but we don't know why. Like, was Torben, did Mother Coral? I'm going to tell you an easy way to remember her name, Sean. I was listening to a show earlier, and they were joking that Coral, they were doing the Walking Dead joke of Coral, kind of thing. Yeah. So that's how you're going to remember her name from now on. Thank you very much. And so was Torben possessed again to do something to put blame on the Jedi by one of the witches? We know that Mother Anastasia is capable of doing so by putting him in the void or whatever that she does. Is Mother Coral does she have the capabilities to do that? Was he manipulated in a different way through some other kind of magic with a K? Or did he make a mistake? Did he, knock over the bucket of gas soaked rags underneath, a dripping candle or something? And it's like, oopsie. And then the whole generator blows up, and it's, we don't know what happened. Obviously, we know that Soul was there in some kind of, doing something somewhere. Were they planting charges? Were they trying to slice into their generator? Did they bring the generator? Was it something? Did they make this whole mountain side fortress? Was it already? There's so many questions that lead into the world building aspect of what this show presented. That like it's already established. You're jumping into the story as it's going, that as Star Wars does. Even at this point in a flashback, we're coming in at a midway point, and to see it all framed in this way where we don't know what's happened, we don't know who's responsible, we don't know what levels of guilt are assigned to anybody, aside from the words that May says to Osha and in back of the what did you do that they both say to each other when they're on opposite sides of the bridge. And I mentioned this in my talk of like that whole scene is very much like the symbolic weight of their own responsibility for what they have done, what they not in that, they brought the Jedi to them or anything that they're responsible for, but they're feeling the weight of responsibility, knowing that their entire world is crashing down around them. May's already kind of lost it, to that
Mm-hmm.
end. She's fueled by her anger, and Osha seems to be more fueled by something more compassionate that we see in these mothers. Coral is very abrasive and she's got more of this firm hand when it comes to raising the girls, and Anastasia has more of a compassionate, motherly, nurturing side to her to like give them enough room to make mistakes and learn from. And Coral seems to be more like, no, we need to protect them through my own experiences without them having to learn their own, like do as I say, not as I do, kind of thing, or you know what I mean. They're different parenting styles, and but the involvement of the Jedi again at this point, the idea of these perspectives and who's right or wrong, it almost seems um, like it doesn't matter. All that we know, or the thing that should matter the most, is that these girls had their entire world ripped out from them.
Mm.
Like that should be the compassion that we as the viewer have, is that something happened to them regardless of the blame. Of course, we want to know because that's good storytelling and good TV. But to think that neither one of them after this event ended up in the better place.
Mm-hmm.
Osha still struggled to the point where she left the order, just like Mother Anastasia told her she would. These shifting sands that she might change her mind, and it's not easy to get out of the order. It is during the time of the High Republic, but those guardrails kind of close up as we get more to the dogmatic essence of the Jedi later on. But and maybe this is one of those reasons why things are a little bit more rigid. This could be one of those things that contextualizes the way we view the Jedi or the prequels. But neither one of them ends up in the better place.
Do
Osha's
you think?
working. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say. Do you think that when they say to each other, "What have you done? What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?" Now I know that May started the fire. I appreciate that, but good God, that escalated quite quickly. For what it was was a small book fire. That aside, they're looking over their dead village, and I'm just wondering if May is asking Osha, "What have you done? Are you responsible for these dead people? For our dead people, and vice versa?" And so they're kind of assuming that either one of them had a hand in the death of their village and of course their mothers. Um, that's kind of the vibe I got from two very, very clever 8-year-old actors um, when they were asking each other that question. Do you think
To
there's
me,
any value in that, or any legs in that?
I do like I get that like that's a response that I think kids would have. But I think for us, kind of like in the God chair, watching it all as a spectator, it's I almost read it more of "Look what you made me do," as
Mhm.
Ah,
opposed
got it,
to "What did you do?" You know what I mean? At least for
got it.
from May's point of view,
Yeah,
where she's like, "I didn't," and to say that she set the fire, I think is a little. Uh, again, we know in the God chair, like she set a fire. We don't know if she set
yes,
the capital F
yes,
fire of the whole place.
yes.
Um, but it's still it doesn't look good for her in that sense. Um, the Jedi don't come off in a very good light after these events, and you know, again, the sympathetic side for me sees that the natural state of this coven of just existing in a place where they can finally feel some kind of peace for themselves is
Mm,
completely disrupted because the Jedi come in with this doctrine, with a search warrant essentially knocking on their door to say, if you got any kids in there, we have to, we want to test them just sight unseen. But again, we don't know the whole story. This whole thing is a matter of perspective and points of view. That I think as it goes on, it's going to become more clear and more murky at the same time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, and it's not going to be so much about levels of blame, but more how we how each of them kind of like copes with the aftermath of what's happened, and whether they accept some level of culpability like we see Torben do,
Mhm.
because Master Andara seems to be fine, with everything at the end. Kelnaka goes off on his own in his little Shrek hut, at the edge of the swamp, saying, get off my lawn, you knuckleheads." And
I
Torben
don't think
kind of
he's.
caught the worst of it.
I don't think he's fine though, is he? He's in some kind of exile.
No, right, but he hasn't.
Self-imposed exile. Sorry.
Right, but we don't know why. Is that a
No,
matter
no,
of
no, we
guilt?
don't. No, 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 we don't.
Did he just leave the order? You know what I mean? Did he say,
Mm,
"You guys are all fucked up, and I want no part of this. I'm just going to go
mm.
live on my own"? That's not the Barrage vow. That's just leaving the order because whatever rigidity the Jedi tried to place in the guise of a cover up, he might have said, "I don't want nothing to do with this. I just want to go work on my speeder
Yeah, yeah.
bike, and to hell with you guys. You guys
Well,
overstepped your bounds."
StarWars.com says that Kofar, where he is like a very dangerous, like wild planet. And so it could just be he's out there like this is my penance. I need to go be
Could be, could be,
in the shit and just like this is the life. This is how I
but
cope.
it is also telling to me that Kelnok is not on the ship at the end of the episode. We don't see him at the end. We only see the three of them.
Mhm.
So did he
Good
stay
point.
behind? Was he the one who
Good point.
saved? Was he the one who saved May? You know what I mean? Like, was he around to catch her with the Force? From the fall, or does she stop herself from the fall? Having stronger Force abilities than Osha had. Um, it's not so much the where was he when all this was happening, but it was what was he doing? Um,
Well, she's also got the
to
witch magic too, and since she was able to go through finish the ceremony.
Yeah, there's a lot of questions. There's a lot more whys that have come up in this whole thing,
Yeah,
like trying to question motivations without really knowing what's happened. I love the idea of playing along with the mystery. This is
Mhm.
one of as much as I love a character like Thrawn, reading a Thrawn book where you have your exposition character, your Eli Vantos or whoever, whoever it may
Mhm.
be, basically saying like, "Oh, that's why you did the thing where the thing and the thing." And that's explains the thing that you'd like, no, let me figure that out for myself. And I love the Thrawn books, don't get me wrong. They're fun, but I like the more like participatory aspect to what this show is. Like it's all there, you know what I mean? And it'll all come to a head at some point, and then we're going to go back and rewatch this thing and be like, "Oh, the thing was already there in the background.
yeah.
I just wasn't. It
Yeah.
wasn't front and center, so I didn't see it."
Well, I love what you said
I,
about how it's not uh like we're not going to get a clear cut thing necessarily. It's like it's not necessarily going to be a good versus evil. Yeah, I have a feeling Shark Helmet is evil, truly, but the situation that happened, it's like yeah, this isn't black and white. Jedi and
Well, don't
Sith. It's like
forget,
there could be a shit situation and people responded poorly, and mistakes happen, and it's
Mhm.
really, really bad. And now we're
don't
paying the
for,
price for it.
don't forget, in the Last Jedi, we saw 3 different versions of the truth
Hmm.
when it came down to how Luke and Ben came to blows. And we don't really know which one was true. Not really. We trust in Luke's version of the truth, but we don't really know for
And at the
sure.
end of the at the end of the day, it doesn't
And so
matter. It truly doesn't matter because it could
exactly,
be people interpret it differently, and it's
and
how
so what
people respond that matters.
and so one of the things that was discussed today, that's Turbo's perspective actually was, which I thought was quite smart, was that we may actually be just seeing this through the lens of one perspective, through Osha's perspective. And the next time we see the gaps may well be from somebody else's perspective, and so on and so forth. And we may see, not whole episodes again, but we may see a series of flashbacks again, but with different versions of the truth from different people's perspectives, which I thought was smart. Another thing I thought was smart, and it's something that's been bugging me because it was Josh's idea, and he thought of it on the fly during the pod, but I can't get it out of my head. What if, rather than all hell breaking loose and the Jedi fighting with the Sisterhood or the witches in the Coven, what if they were poisoned? What if they were poisoned? And the poetry being that Torben is offered to um, kill himself or take his own life in return for the poisoning of the Coven itself. And I'm not saying it as eloquently as perhaps Josh did, but I thought, actually, that's quite smart. I quite like that idea. Anyway, I'll leave that with you, whether you like it or not. But the last question I've got for you, Rik, is really, because I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, because there's so much about the High Republic I don't know. I really, really don't know. And we've been joking about, there's so much that you need to teach me and take me through it. But how much of what we're seeing at the moment in these first 3 episodes has connective tissue to the books itself?
Almost zero. There's
Wow.
there's n- there's not a lot of connections directly to events in the books. Obviously Vernestra is kind of the big one, just as a character who's been in the books, but they haven't really alluded to anything. Like there's been no mention of the Nile, and within the books so far, um, there is no like kind of dark side presence outside of like the Drengir have connections to the dark side of the Force in a way, and the Nameless, these kind of Force eater characters. That's literally what they do. They feed on the Force and they turn people into husks. So much so in the High Republic, I want to say it's in Escape from Valo, one of the first of the Phase 3 books, the middle grade book. They joke that like the idea of the Sith is like not even a thing. Like
Right.
it's something that they take it so unseriously that it was ever a thing, because I mean obviously their threat is the Nile in these stories, but um, yeah, there's not a lot that I would say, oh, you really want to know what this thing is? You need to read X book about the thing. Maybe the only other big connection besides Vernestra is the Barrage Vow, but even that, canonically, it has its origins in the High Republic, but it originally appeared in the Darth Vader comic from 2017, the Charles Soule book. It was a character named Kirik Infila was his name, something like that. He took the Barrage Vow after the events of Order 66 because he felt like he didn't do enough, essentially. There's a lot more to it than that. And Vader's whole thing in meeting him was that the Emperor says, you can't have a lightsaber until you go find one, kill a Jedi, and bleed his blade. That's where he gets his lightsaber from. So,
Yeah, I've read that one.
and it,
I've read something.
right.
Hey!
If you want to know kind of the true origins of what the Barrage Vow is, again, it doesn't really matter in the context of this story, but if you read Charles Soule's comic series, The Blade, about Porter Engle and Barash Sylvain, who is his, I'm air quoting, sister. They came up in the order together. Something happens. It's a great miniseries, but
Mm.
something happens in that where she feels a level of responsibility for something not great that happens, and she tells him like, I can't be a part of this order. I need to go figure things out for myself. And she takes this vow. That's where we get the name from, because her name is Barash. So there's not a ton in the books so far, or I should say, there's not a ton in the show so far that makes me say you really need to do this thing, or experience this one story to get a different context for the show.
But don't you have a theory? Because I was listening to your catch up or your review earlier on. Don't you have a theory on who the witches could be?
Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities there, and this was a topic of conversation that came up quite a bit just with the first trailers and stuff. That the Coven has ties to the Path of the Open Hand, from Phase 2 of the High Republic, and Phase 2 is about 300 years ish before A New Hope, maybe like 280 years. And you have the Path of the Open Hand basically says that their motto is that the Force will be free. They have this ideology that the Jedi, in particular, using the Force for something that they feel is good, has a butterfly effect somewhere else where something bad happens. If they use the Force to, you know, save somebody from a falling blah blah blah, somewhere on the other side of the galaxy, somebody dies because the Force needs to be in balance. But for them, it's also a matter of kind of control and gaslighting and all of this kind of stuff. Because by the end of Phase 2, spoilers, the Path of the Open Hand becomes a different thing. I think they call it like the Way of the Closed Fist, where they're a little bit more militant. They're a little more warrior. And I can see through lines to what this coven becomes, especially in their dress. The idea that they are called Mother, because the leader of the Path of the Open Hand, she goes by the name Mother also. And but I think now, knowing what the coven is in the show, I think as a matriarchal society, all of the women, or all of the elders, or
Mm.
the council of these women, are probably all go by the title of Mother, as opposed to just these two, because they are parents to
Yeah,
May
yeah.
and Osha. And kind of the big distinguishing thing there is that they call Coral Mother Coral, and they call Anasea Mama. There's a different level of compassion and familiarity there that we don't see expressed with the rest of the coven. So I think that's more of a superficial thing there. If we find out that there is some kind of ties to the Path of the Open Hand, I would then say, check out these books, guys. You really want to
Excellent.
do the thing. And Phase 2 of the High Republic only has 6 books. And the books that focus, I think, the most on the path are the young adult books, which is only 2 of Path of Deceit and Path of Vengeance. And I think they're both banger books. They're both really, really good. You get kind of like an origin story for them for the phase, and then kind of like not really an ending point, because there's a lot of overlap with Phase 2. There's a ton, guys. I don't want to confuse anybody, but
If I if I
yeah.
if I make the most of my summer and get back into reading or listening, will you come back so
Yeah,
we can talk
absolutely.
about it? Awesome.
100%. 100%.
Awesome.
I am always down to talk books, man.
Listen, I know you've got commitments with the family this evening, and I really appreciate you coming on. I could talk to you for hours. It's so nice having somebody knowledgeable. Sorry, not saying that you're not, Torm, but you know what I mean.
Dang, man.
Sorry, you know what I mean.
Damn.
You know what I mean, dude.
Oh,
Way to put
man.
Eric Strothers down, man.
We kind of. Well, oh God, I'm.
Did you hear the
burying myself
backpedal,
here.
Eric? Did you hear that backpedal right there?
Dig yourself out of this one.
Yeah. No, I'm just gonna go now. Rik, thank you so much. And listen, I know that you and I have only started engaging in recent months, but I'm really grateful for our friendship. And I think what you're doing is pretty amazing. Like I said, you work ridiculous hours at the best of times, but adding on top of that, you're reading and then you're reviewing as well. I think it's pretty monumental. Thank you so much for coming on tonight.
Well, thank you for the kind words, and thank you both for having me come on. And this was something that's been in the works for a while. I always like to talk a little behind the scenes about how this goes. Sean and I've been talking about this for a little bit. I think I put it out after like the second episode of like, hey, if you ever need me to come on and flap my gums about some things, I can do that. But I'm truly grateful that you guys asked me to come on. I love talking Star Wars and getting deep in the weeds with this stuff. And I love what you guys are doing. Low sodium
Thanks, man.
content. I'm here for all of it. I enjoy it every week. Technical difficulties aside, it's a good time catching up with you guys, and I'm honored that you guys asked me to come on. So
And
we
you
really
experienced
appreciate
them.
it. Yeah.
You experienced the technical difficulties in real time this evening as
What?
well. So
Nothing
there you
happened.
go.
Nothing happened.
Oh,
This
no,
was
no,
this
no,
was
no, no,
this
no,
was
no.
Zencaster's fault this time. And one
Right.
last thing for Rick. We've talked about it kind of around about a million times, but I totally forgot. We never actually mentioned where people might know you from. So how can people find you and reach you if they want to hear your stuff? Even though everybody who listens to us listens to you too, but we'll do it anyways.
Go to my MySpace page. I got some cool animations there. My top 8 is banger. Um, no, you guys, you guys can find me on Jam Transmissions. Thanks for making me trip. Jam Transmissions is the name of my podcast. Where lately it's been a lot of book talk, and since I've been able to get review copies of the books in the last year or so, it's one of my favorite things about Star Wars is getting in books. I do love talking about the shows and just, yeah, anything else, and having fun, awesome people come on the show. If you want to find me online anywhere, at Cad Bane's Bounty on Twitter and Blue Sky primarily, and you can follow the show at JT Comlink on Twitter and at jamtransmissions.com on Blue Sky. And Sean, I've said this plenty of times before, both on my show and to you personally, either in text or face to face. Like, this man is the architect of the website that the show kind of runs on, and I know you're working to do some things right now, and I'm eternally grateful for the work that you're putting in um, to help me get the show out that way and everything that's going on right now. So yeah, that's about where you can find me. I'm in various groups on Facebook. If people still use Facebook, there's some places you can find me. I don't really promote that kind of stuff because Facebook is for grumpy people, and I'm not one of them. I like to have a lot of fun. Andy's on Facebook. He's grumpy as shit.
Here I am. Here I am. Damn kids. Sean, buddy, take us out. Thank you so much again, Rick. I really appreciate it.
What he said, I agree with everything everybody said 100% on this podcast the whole time. Thank you, Rick. I'd love to have you back on again. I know we have so much more to talk about outside of the Acolyte, and just we have so much more to chat about and share. I really appreciate you coming on. I love your podcast. Love you guys, both of you guys. If anybody wants to find us, to go to justshillin.com and everything's there. You know where we are. Until next week, where we talk about the Acolyte and everything else again. It's been fun.
Stay safe, stay happy, look after yourselves.
May the force be with you.
Bye.